No, well, my name is Ryan, and I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. I got a sobriety date of November 2nd, 2022. I have a sponsor. I'm willing to sponsor. I got a home group, and I attend meetings. This program has saved my life in more ways than I could ever imagine. I was a little late getting here because I was at a meeting, and someone at that meeting said that they mentioned that if you write down a list of everything you want to gain from AA, you'll be amazed by what you actually receive, and that's true for me tenfold. I came to AA to specifically get sober. I just didn't want to drink anymore. I didn't want to use anymore. And the things that I received while being in this program trump that every moment of the day. And I was I was overwhelmed by alcohol during my alcoholism and drinking time. And it was rough. I was definitely the person who thought alcohol was the solution for an extremely long time. There was so many things that alcohol just made better for me. I was someone completely overwhelmed with self, and I hated myself at the same time. I was very egotistical with self-hate, and it's a weird combination, but for some reason that's exactly how I was. And I also had a very big issue with perception. I always wanted to perceive things in a way for me, for it to work for me. And I still sometimes have that issue, but it was definitely one of those things that it caused a lot more problems than good. And the alcohol was the answer to that problem until it wasn't. And I was one of those people that I started off. I wasn't one that I hear all the time that when people start that they got blacked out on the first time. That wasn't me. I was a slow drinker at start. I drank every once in a while, but I'm also one of those people that I eventually jump head in, and that's what happened. It went from maybe once or twice a week on the weekends to walking around high school with a bottle full of moonshine, trying to get through the day, just drinking. And then came every single day that I had to have a drink. And it was always followed up with some reason for it. It was somebody had a good day, let's go get drunk. I had a long day at work, let's go get drunk. Somebody died, let's go get drunk. Somebody had a baby, let's go get drunk. And everything, every part of my life got developed by it. Or succumbed to alcohol. And eventually, especially the last couple years of my drinking, I started to hate drinking. I just didn't like it anymore. I was turning into somebody, and I saw it. Saw myself turning into a person that I wasn't. I'd get overly aggressive. I'd argue, fight, I'd steal, I'd resent people, I'd just do anything and everything that I didn't like. And I saw it happening, but I couldn't stop myself. And then the last year of my drinking, that was real bad because I had a death in the family. And I firmly believe that most families have somebody that holds it all together. And that was my great grandma. And she passed away on March 17th of 2022, or March 2nd of 2022. And then I had a son that was born on March 17th, 2022. So I didn't get a chance to grieve. I didn't get a chance to actually handle that. And the only way I was able to handle any of that was by drinking. I didn't want to feel that pain. And then June 2nd of 2022, my son passed away due to an allergic reaction. And at that point, I just wanted to be numb. I didn't want to live anymore. I didn't know what to do. And that just pushed me off the cliff. Started drinking bottles every night, fifths, handles, whatever I can actually afford, even though I couldn't afford any of it. And I would drink to fall asleep. And then I'd wake up, and every morning for the rest of that year, I told myself the same three things. Ryan, you don't need to drink. Ryan, you can't afford it. Ryan, don't do it. And an hour later, I was at the gas station buying alcohol until I was finally ready to just end it all. And in one moment, you know, I hear a lot that this program will help you stay sober, but it gives you, it will get you sober, but it connects you to a power that will keep you sober. And I was able to see that higher power before I even came to treatment. I made the decision in one moment of clarity that I needed help, and I took action on that. I didn't know what to do myself, so I tried to call my mom, but she had me blocked. I called the only friend that stuck around through all of my havoc, and I asked him to call my mom and tell her that I'm ready for help. And he did, and she called me back 10 minutes later and gave me a phone number to a treatment center, told me who I needed to talk to. Her name was Amanda, told me to answer all her questions as honestly as I could and to try to do it sober. And I didn't call on the day I was supposed to. I called the next day, but I did do that. And they gave me a bed. I had to wait 2 weeks. And, you know, I lasted the first week still drinking, but then I was about to become homeless. And I was staying in a hotel. I had just enough money to pay for one more night. And I knew that if I ended up on the streets, I was going to take my own life. I knew I'd last maybe a day or two, and then I was going to end it. And I decided the only idea I had, I knew if I had any other idea, I would have rode that thing until the wheels fell off and then took it 5 more blocks. But my idea was ask God. So I dropped to my knees for the first time since I was 12 years old. And I asked God to please keep me safe and protected until I could get to treatment. And I got up and I went to bed. And the very next day, my prayer was recited back to me. The store manager to the place that I was working followed me around all day. And at the end of the shift, he asked me how my living situation was. And again, for the first time in 15 years, I was brutally honest. And I told him, I don't know what's going to happen. I know I'm going to lose that hotel, and I don't know what's going to happen after that. Well, he took me back to that hotel, and then he paid for me to stay there for 7 more nights. And I had 9 nights until I got to treatment. And when I asked him why he did that, he recited my prayer back to me and said, I just wanted to make sure you were safe and protected until you got to treatment. And right then and there, like a snap of a finger, I knew God did that for me. I knew my higher power, God, saved me. He watched my back, and he was making sure that I was able to get to where I needed to be to get sober. And when I got into that treatment center, the first week, I was overcome with so much feelings that I just did nothing but cry, from the grief of my grandma, the grief of my son, the thoughts of everything that I did and had to do to keep drinking and using. It just overpowered me and made me powerless. That second week, I started to feel different things. I started to feel joy. I started to feel happiness. I started to feel the warmth of the people around me, being involved in other people's conversations and talks. And I started to realize that I'm not alone, that there's other people that were like me. And getting into that treatment center was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because then after that treatment center, I was able to move downstairs. So it was smarts and then arts, and downstairs was still in the same building, but it was kind of like a halfway house situation. You're there for 14 days on lockdown, but then you're able to leave, go to work, go to outside meetings. And when I was able to hit outside meetings, that's when everything started to change for me, because that's when I walked into one place. I tried other places and it was just weird. Everybody kept staring at me. No one said anything and it felt real awkward. But then I went into one other place. And when I walked in, it was a complete different type of awkwardness. Everybody attacked me with hugs, asking me my name, asking me how I was doing, telling me welcome, that they were so happy that I was there. And it was one of those things that it turned into like, okay, get off of me. Like, get off of me. I get it. You guys are happy I'm here. Let me see if I'm happy to be here. And in about a week's time, I ended up being that guy that everybody, I'd sit next to the door, people would come in, and I'm hugging you now. Like, I'm coming to you, hugging you, introducing myself. And then came the step work, and those steps, those things, man. I say it all the time that they're laid out real simple for us. You follow one and you keep going, and they're numbered and everything. You got to do them in order, but man, do those things get kind of hard sometimes. They get real hard. And then remembering that you got to go back and continue to do steps as well. Because at first I started to do these steps, and I'm basically putting a check mark next to them, but I'm forgetting that when I start to take power, I got to go back and admit that I'm powerless. And that's where the fellowship comes into play, because the program is what, for me, has definitely made the changes and stuff. But the fellowship, when you start to build that fellowship, that's when, for me, when I started to build that fellowship, that's when the people notice you. They notice the changes in you. They notice your behavior. They notice who you are, and they can point out when you're slipping. And I've had that happen to me a couple times. And, at first I was reluctant. I heard this saying that if one person calls me a horse, I might tell them to F off. But if two or three people call me a horse, it's time for me to go buy a saddle. And that's exactly what happened to me at a point in my recovery, because I got stagnant with my steps. I kept coming up with reasons why I can't do the simplest of things. I did my 4 and 5, and then it took me a couple of months to do my 6 and 7. And my reason was me and my sponsor haven't read that yet. So I can't do that because I didn't work that with my sponsor yet. And I finally decided to work those 2 steps after I got called a horse a couple times. I worked those 2 steps, and I called my sponsor up and I said, we need to make a list. And we got to work making my step 8 list. And now I'm working on doing my step 9. He just gave me a book that I need to read. And I've already attempted one of those amends, but I kind of made it all about myself and what I did, and just promised that I'm doing everything I can right now to learn how to not make those same actions and that same behavior lash out anymore. I thought I did a good job. My sponsor said otherwise. But the point is, in all that, is that my life went from something of turmoil and havoc to something of gratitude and joy. I'm able to see light in darkness. I'm able to cool cool myself when I'm in the middle of flames, and I know that I don't have to drink anymore. And I have people that I could reach out to when I have issues or problems going on in my life that I can't figure out. I have people to reach out to. And I also have a higher power that I know has my back. I just got to allow him to have it, because it's all in me. It's in my head, it's in my body, it's in my mind, that when I have a problem, Ryan has to do 100 different things to try to fix it. And I continuously learn the hard way that it's a lot easier if I let go and let God. If I accept the fact that my higher power is going to make sure that whatever happens is what he has planned, that I know that I'll be all right. Because he's shown me that in this past year at least 100 times that he has my back and that his plan is going to make sure that I'm okay. And I'll never be able to take care of myself the way my higher power can take care of me. Every time that I've tried to put my hand in that pot, everything goes crazy. Everything goes wild. People start getting hurt. People start getting pushed away. And, I ruin things that I think were so great in my life. And then I let go and let God. And those issues or those feelings are sometimes still there. But then I start seeing God's work. And I've always had that problem with seeing to believe. I used to always have to see it in order to believe it. And every time that I believe first, I get to see it. Because when I try to see to believe, I'd never see it. I'd never see it. So then I never believed. But I'm learning today that when I believe, that's when I actually see the changes. That's when I actually see what is happening and what God's doing. And I know that this stuff is working for me. I'm getting so much from it. So now I'm at a point in my recovery to where I just feel I have to start giving back. And that's one of those things that I'm extremely grateful for as well. Because without the ability to give back this stuff, I don't get to keep it. I hear that so often in the meetings that I go to, that the only way I get to keep this is if I give it back, if I give it to somebody else. And I'm so grateful that the people that God put around me were so willing to give it to me. Were so willing to help me, whether it involved walking me through hand in hand in a hard time or giving me a kick in my butt when I needed it, because I need both of those a lot. I I don't always know what's going on and I don't have to, but I do need to listen and follow the suggestions that I'm given by the people around me. Follow the simple written instructions in this book. And just no matter how hard it gets, remember that I need to pray and remember that I am powerless and that my life is unmanageable. Because every time that I remember that, the very first step, every time I recite that first step, it opens the avenue to everything else that this program has to offer for me. And that may just be me, but that's what's been working so much lately. Because I've definitely been going through a very tough and hard situation on my mind. And I tried every way. Ryan took control again and I put everything that I could think of doing, everything I could think of saying, everything that Ryan could think of, he tried. And it kept messing with my mind and kept messing with my thoughts and started to bring back old characteristics and old defects of character. I started lying again. And when I admitted that I was powerless and that my life became unmanageable for probably the thousandth time, I started to see the changes in behavior again. The that Not sure how it is for anybody else, but my fourth dimension is realization, seeing the change. So, like when I lied to somebody, I noticed that Ryan didn't just run away from that lie and hide and not come back around. Ryan immediately talked to that person again and admitted that he lied and came forward in that. Didn't hide and cowered like he normally did, and that right there is a change, and that's what they talk about in the spiritual appendix, that spiritual awakening is change, and that only happens when you're working the steps. And I'm a firm believer, it's my opinion, which doesn't matter, but you don't have to get to step 12 to have a spiritual awakening. If you're working these steps to the best of their ability, you will see changes before you get to step 12. You will see your character defects start to slip away. And as long as you keep working the steps, for me, as long as I keep working the steps, they'll stay away. And I've seen that when I don't work the steps, that they come back. And I'm just so grateful to have the people in my life, this program. I heard someone today say that they have the golden ticket when they were referring to being an alcoholic and being in this program. And when I first got here, I didn't even know what an alcoholic was. I thought that that was just whenever someone called me an alcoholic, I thought they were admitting that they couldn't drink as much as me. And I took pride in that. But then I started to think about what the person said when they said they have the golden ticket for being in AA. And it gave me that same sense of pride because I am handed instructions on how to have a better life. And not many people get that. Just about nobody gets a book written down specifically for them to have a better way of life. And I know that before I came into this program that I was lost. I didn't know what life was. I didn't know what life meant. And since being in this program, I don't I don't get lost as much. And if I do get lost, I definitely get found by my recovery network, and I get found by my higher power every time I open that book back up and can relate to the things in it.